Hello and welcome to Akancha Against Harassment, your cyber safety podcast 101. And today I have an entrepreneur friend with me, Rohin Dharmakumar. Rohin is the co-founder and CEO of The Ken. In his own words, The Ken is a premium business news startup which offers sharp, original insight on technology, business, science and healthcare from across India. Hey Rohin, welcome and thank you for making this time.
Good morning, Akancha. Thank you for inviting me and having me on your podcast.
You're most welcome. And I forgot to add, you have this cute, adorable adopted puppy also called Gabru now, which we keep following on Twitter.
Yeah, thanks to the long-running efforts of my 8-year-old son, who pestered us over, I think, roughly a 6-month period till we finally gave in.
Fantastic. See, that's the power of persistence. And Rohin, this is a very special episode for me. Of course, you are here, but also I must tell you that this is the 51st episode of Akancha Against Harassment podcast. And considering I did an episode 0, this is actually the 1-year anniversary for my podcast.
Wow, congratulations, Akancha. I did not know. 50 is like 51 is like a significant number. And 1 year is a significant number. And coincidentally, next month is when we complete 2 years as well. So, congratulations to you.
Thanks, Rohin. And of course, this is fantastic job which you and your team are doing. And, it's crazy the way you pulled off something which people didn't imagine was easily possible, especially in content business in India at this point of time, a subscription-based news model. So well done on that. And I want to ask you that, how's the journey been so far before we really get to cyber safety? How's it been so far? And what's the number of team members now? And how's it growing? Do tell us.
Sure, Akancha. So we started roughly 2 years back. Come October, we'll be 2 years old. When we started, we were just 4 of us co-founders and 4 staff writers. And today we are a team of 25 people actually and still growing. A small correction saying that we are in the content business. We're not. We're actually in the news or journalism business. And I think we're having a ball. We're doing the kind of stories as journalists that we feel are meaningful and our subscribers love it. So that's I think, the ideal place to be in, where you're doing the kind of work that is meaningful to you and your subscribers value it and pay for it because it's meaningful to them as well. So it's been a great dream run till now.
Fantastic. And coming back to online environment now, Rohin, which is really the focus of today's conversation. Sometimes I see a lot of criticism or accusations of being biased or too harsh on certain companies or people through your news pieces. How does that harsh and sometimes unreasonable criticism affect you personally? And secondly, your business?
So if you are a journalism organization, especially one that engages in investigative, critical, long-form, analytical journalism, you must be prepared to be criticized for it. And that's only fair, right? Because we are under no illusion that everything that we say will always be correct, right? So criticism is required because it keeps all journalism organizations in check. That said, you're right. We do tend to get a lot of, personal attacks at times when we do a story. A lot of people accuse us of saying, hey, what do you have against this sector or this company or this VC? And frankly, we don't, right? Our only objective is to kind of tell this, the most truthful story that we can from our reportage for our subscribers. When we get that kind of criticism, by and large, I think by now we've evolved a fairly good idea of what kind of criticism from our subscribers or readers is meaningful and well-meaning or versus one which is purely meant to be like a personal attack or abuse.
Right.
And I think we either ignore or block and just move on. Earlier on, probably at the Ken or even earlier, it's our tendency to try and engage with everyone who criticizes. I think to some extent it's human tendency, right? Someone, speaks out to you and calls you something or makes a comment on your character. you want to refute it, right? Because you're like, hey, you can't say that about me.
Correct.
But then after enough amount of time goes and you see how social media, especially Twitter, has really become, then I think you move on to a level where you say that, look, I only have one life and I have a work and I have work to do, I have stories to write and so this isn't really for me, right? And
Right.
then we just block and move on. And I think that's personally been a learning for all of us individually as well as at the Ken, that if you reach out to us and you attack us in bad faith, then you're not owed a response from us.
Right. I think that's very sensible. Do you ever have a talk with your team, especially any of the younger members, when there is any harsh criticism or trolling or, verging on abusive feedback? Do you guys have this conversation between yourselves on how to handle it and how to not let it impact your mind frame when you're doing the stories?
We do not have, those one-off conversations or planned conversations. Instead, the backbone of our organizational communication is via Slack. So we're always online and there are multiple channels and we're always, aware of what conversations are going on about us or like how our stories are doing. So whenever something happens, I think we're a fairly well connected team and we spot things fairly quickly. And if sometimes, anyone, and, it's not necessarily that young versus old, right? At times, even I've gotten carried away in spite of, trying to kind of have that self-discipline to not engage with trolls, right? So someone or the other will always kind of come in and say, hey, I don't think this is going anywhere productive. So might
Yeah.
be best to just disengage, right?
Right.
So I think there's we have this collective, voice that reaches out and spots something which is possibly starting to go off on a tangent, and then gently say that, look, this isn't really meaningful.
Absolutely. And sometimes, I feel that we take this entire universe of Twitter and Facebook way too seriously, as if our lives dependent on it, as if, that feedback means everything beyond our, purpose in life. So that's strange, right, Rohan? At the end of the day, they are just social media platforms and there's just that many people who are there and who are interactive. Um, I don't think it should impact us in the manner that it does, because I'm sure 100% of your readers are not really on Twitter or on Facebook that we should be so bothered about every negative comment which comes in.
They're not, and I think, but the answer is slightly more complex than that. Like if you view Twitter purely from the point of view of how many readers or potential readers are on it, and how many of them are engaged in a productive or in a constructive discussion with you, obviously it doesn't matter that much, right? But that said, if you're a news organization, Twitter is enormously important for people to know about you, about your stories, um, about your writers, etc. And all that. So you can't ignore it. Also, a couple of other things with journalists generally are quite touchy about criticism which is directed at their story, saying, hey, you got this wrong, or hey, you were biased here, right?
Yeah.
By the traditional media organizations kind of don't give a damn because they're like, look, it's gone into the papers, I've moved on, you can probably write a letter to the editor and that's it, right? But newer organizations like us are probably on the other extreme where we're like, look, this is a story that I worked 10 days, 7 days, 15 days on, and I really take pride in it. So if you're going to insinuate that, this is completely wrong, then I'm going to defend myself, right?
Right.
Because sometimes not defending yourself is construed as acceptance of whatever is being alleged.
Correct.
So I think there is it's a subjective call that individuals and organizations have to take. That what are those accusations that you feel must be refuted, and which are the ones that you feel are just in bad faith and can be completely ignored.
Understood. So, Rohin, the next question is pretty much on the same lines. I was about to ask you that, this is a very powerful tool we have in our hand today, all these social media platforms. And what is that one takeaway you would like to share with the startups today, especially? That what is that one thing they can really leverage from these social media platforms for their businesses, irrespective of what kind of business they are in today?
Um, That's a great question. And I think it comes down to the fact that audiences, consumers, customers, subscribers, readers, whoever you call it, they're very highly evolved when it comes to their ability to form a true impression of a brand and its values.
Right.
They cannot, you as a brand, you cannot hope to convince them that this is who you are using expensive television advertising or online ads or email campaigns, etc. and all that, right?
Right.
One way to obviously get them to believe what you are is through your product itself. The other way I feel is through social media.
Right.
The way brands and the people, the stakeholders of a brand behave and interact with the world on social media, I think implicitly allows people who are observing them and interacting with them to form an idea of, I get what this brand is about. They're direct, they're transparent, they're responsive. I'm just trying to come up with examples. So social media therefore allows you to, or maybe if I reverse it, social media allows consumers and customers to form a much truer understanding of what brands stand for and how they behave in the real world and not through the make-believe construct of advertising and marketing.
Sure. That's very well said. And in fact, I think some of the most loved brands are those who are very responsive and who are interacting with their customers, consumers online. And it gives them a tremendous insight into, how their brand is actually being,
Sure.
interacted
and
with on ground.
And authentic, right?
Correct.
Authenticity is something that's very hard to nail, but it's also increasingly very important for brands. And I think social media is one of the best channels for you to essentially be authentic. It's hard, but I think it's worth trying.
Fantastic, Rohin. This was really interesting. And before I wind off, I just want to ask you, you do 6 stories a week. And that can be really mentally fatiguing at times, I'm sure. Do you ever feel like taking a digital break, saying that that's it, I don't want to touch Twitter and Facebook for a week and I want to go away to the mountains somewhere?
Yes, all the time. I would like to take a detox for a longer period of time and disconnect from everything. But my co-founders and team would probably beat me up. So in the absence of that, what I try and do increasingly, and I'm at it, I'm only beginning with it, is to set specific hours of the day when I'm allowed to check Twitter or respond to it. And outside of those hours, I try and log out so that I don't give in to the temptation.
Right.
That said, it's only Twitter, and I don't use Instagram, I don't use Facebook, I don't use LinkedIn. So I think, it's a very important question. And I think we all need to have some kind of discipline around how much we allow ourselves to use these.
Right. So thank you so much, Rohin. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your insights. And I wish the Ken and the entire team great success and keep at it. You guys are doing a fabulous job. And I hope we will speak again in one of our future episodes and we'll share such interesting facts with the other startups in the ecosystem. So thanks a lot, Rohin.
Thank you so much, Akancha. And here's wishing your 100th episode and 500th episode in quick succession.
Thanks a lot. And for everyone listening in, if you have a question, you can drop me an email at helloakanksha@gmail.com. That's HELLOAKANCHA. You can also tweet to me at AKANCHAS. Until then, stay aware, stay safe.